Om Shanti, and a very good evening to you all. I am delighted to, do this work on behalf of all of you to explore a very interesting topic with our brother Geoff here. Tell you a bit about myself. My name is Ami, and I am from Sydney, Australia. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Geoff here. Geoff came to Baba in August 1985 in a very popular part of Sydney called Bondi. How many of you here have been to Australia? Just curious. A few. Wonderful. And few are here from Australia. So yeah, it's amazing how Baba finds his children. Bondi is not one of those places you would think Baba would find his children, so there you go.
What, down under?
Yeah. And so Geoff, says he lives at Baba's retreat centre in Melbourne, which is one of the oldest retreat centres in Australia. We're lucky in Australia, we've got 4 retreat centres, but this is, I would say it's, has very beautiful speciality, and Geoff adds to the fragrance of the place. So also Geoff is semi-permanent in Madhuban. I think you are like more than semi-permanent though. I see.
70%.
70%. So it's like 3/4.
About 3/4.
So Geoff works in the animation department in Shantiwan, and also worked formerly in Godlywood Studio. The topic we're going to be exploring today is revealing the shift of ages in the cycle. And this topic has come about because of his interest in delving into the mysteries of the cycle and the changes that take place through the different ages. His interest started very early in Gyan, and he's read many books on ancient mysteries and civilizations, especially from the first, that captures memories from the first half of the cycle. So we are in for a treat. When we were exploring or discussing this topic together, the thing that came to mind is the old days, I think in 80s and 90s when we used to come to come to Madhuban, we would sit with many of the seniors, in the courtyard or, over a chai or in the corridor in one of the bhavans, and we will explore some of these things, right? And many residents, would have deeply churned about it or would have read and heard, and it really made Gyan very, very interesting and brought it really live. So we're hoping to do that for all of you today. I think nowadays in the age of mobile phones, those organic conversations don't happen as much because we're always answering to our phones. So I think, this gives us a great opportunity to connect. So on that note, so the plan today is actually we're going to go through each of the ages of the cycle. And then we will look at, what has Baba said in the Murli about these ages? And then I'm going to draw and pick Geoff's brain to share what he's read in some of these history books about that time and some of the research he has done. Let's see what we all learn. Right. So I'm going to sit at an angle so I can actually look at you. So you can stay. Feel all right. So first thing we want to start with is Golden Age. What comes to your mind, Geoff, when we explore Golden Age? And especially, what you remember was Baba shared in the Murlis and over the years through bulk messages about this time of Golden Age?
Well, I think Golden Age, for me, I always, I've had a couple of visions of Golden Age. When I first came to Baba, I had quite a few visions, and a couple of them were of the Golden Age. But they actually were very quick, just like a minute or two, and it was just certain scenes, like one was inside of a palace, one was outside in the forest with a princess. So, well, I am assuming it was a princess. So, I mean, but for me, actually thinking about the Golden Age, I always think about not just, I mean, Bubba's always talking about, high status and royal family and big palaces and things like that. But for me, it's always been about the whole city, because Bubba says, the capital, Parastan? Yeah, so anyway, the capital. So, of course, the majority of the Golden Age is all of us who live together in one area of the whole planet, which is quite interesting, actually. And of course, it's a very big area, but it's a working. What's always got me thinking is the working society of the Golden Age, because it is a working society. I mean, I know talking to many Brahmins, they think, we'll just sort of go through the forests and pick the fruit and eat it and not do much at all. But actually, it's actually a working civilization. Someone's got to manufacture Vemans, someone's got to make the electronics, because there are electronics in the Golden Age. And they have found there was a rock. Actually, I don't know if anyone here knows electronics. I did electronics in the military. And there's little programmable chips called EPROMs, and they're like little spiders. They're black with little legs coming off either side. And actually, they found almost like an ancient one embedded in a rock, and it looks like a modern EPROM, like a programmable thing. And they found that in a rock. It was inside of a rock. So it means that, in the Golden Age, there's actually facilities to make electronics, facilities to make the Vemans. You have to make furniture, you have to do all of it. You have to make clothes, stitch clothes. Cut gems, make crowns, bracelets, jewelry, all sorts of things. So it's a working society, and we all have different roles there. So my sort of fascination was, what does the main part of the city look like? Because you see all the pictures, all the artwork of the Golden Age, there's big palaces and you've got the royal gathering, But the royal family in the Golden Age must be less than 100? Is it, do you think? Because there's 8 main jewels. No, probably more, a little bit more, because there's 8 main jewels and then there's 108. There's the 108. So maybe there's 108 in the royal family. And then that grows over time, because Baba has said by the end of the Silver Age, there's 16,108 in the royal family. So at the beginning, which means that there's 900,000 citizens taking up the rest of the city, plus working in the palaces, of course. So for me, it's always been fascinating, what does the main part of the city look like? Because we see all of the palaces, but ordinary buildings, because I remember when I read Jagdish's book, about the cycle. Has everyone
Is that
seen
the Eternal Drama?
The Eternal Drama. Has anyone read that here? Probably some of the very oldies. When I first came to Baba and I finished the course, the lesson of the cycle got me. That was, yes, I was hooked after the lesson of the cycle. So the first day that I went to the centre to attend Murli, I was looking at all the books. I bought Jagdish's book, The Eternal Cycle, and I read it. So it's a good book, but Jagdish wasn't convinced that there were solid bricks of gold. He said there were plated bricks of gold.
And what's the difference?
Well, one is that underneath it looks like a gold brick, but actually underneath is either stone or marble, and then it's got a plate, a coated part of gold. But Baba says, there are mountains of gold. There's enough gold there to make bricks of gold, And I remember Charlie from Australia. Everyone probably knows of Charlie. He read an article that the scientists did a deep scan of the Earth, and they think there's enough gold way, way down in the Earth to coat all the land mass of the planet in 0.5 meter of gold. So that's a lot of land, that coating in 0.5 meter of gold. So there's a lot of gold down there, you know. So of course, I mean, it's not that far-fetched, but I don't think, this is my personal thing from journeying, is that yes, the palaces are made of gold. And I often thought, sitting in sort of like meditation, I often thought, and we used to have yoga bhattis, and I often thought, you know, if everything is made of gold, wouldn't that be quite boring? I mean, you know, if everything's...
It'd be very shiny.
Very shiny, but everything's got the same texture, everything's gold. Wouldn't that be quite boring? Of course, Baba says, you know, they're studded with jewels. Jewels are like normal stones, you know, so you just use them as decoration, you know. But I thought it was quite boring, and then I was on a plane to Australia, and there was someone was watching a movie next to me, and I was sort of like just looking over, and they had this. It was because I do visual effects in the computer, so I'm always on the lookout for ways to do visual effects for Baba, you know, and you can learn from the industry, you know. So there was this shot, and they were flying over a gold city. It was like a fantasy, but it was a gold city. And I was watching all the detail and said, well, it doesn't look so boring, you know, because it had a lot of detail in it, you know. And
so
then,
is it like carving and...
Yeah, and then 2 weeks later, I saw a picture online of a couple in India. They were sitting by a huge column. I'm not sure where it was, I can't remember, but the column was gold. But the decoration on the column was amazing, you know, it was very artistic, it was very wonderful to look at, and I thought, wow, okay, so it is really nice to look at, even though it's all gold, you know. But of course for me, I thought, well, they're the palaces, but what do the buildings in the city look like, you know, because everyone else lives in, Baba says, palace, even the lowest subject in the Golden Age has land the size of Mount Abu. So Mount Abu is, I think, 20 kilometers long, I think, is it? Someone? Anyone? No. 20 kilometers long, so, I mean, that's still quite a bit of land, you know, that's a lot of acres. So the palaces will be, the buildings, the houses, palaces, whatever you like to call them, will be actually quite huge, but of course they're not multi-story, so we can spread out a lot, you know. And I remember in the early days, in 1987, I think it was, I went to Madhuban off-season, you know, out of season, and there was only 15 foreigners there. But there was a couple of thousand Bharatwasis staying, so the program, we had a class by one of the very old daddies called Devi Daddy. I think Devi Daddy, anyone know? No, she used to spend a lot of time in trance, and apparently Mohini Ben was saying, Mohini from New York was saying that Baba isolated her for like a month so she can go into trance and see what the Golden Age is like, just concentrate on that, you know. So we had a class by her, and it was the coronation of Lakshmi and Narayan from the very beginning right through the whole day to the very end, like late at night or early the next morning it was actually, you know. So she described everything, and I'd love to get a hold of that class if anyone's got connections anywhere. But at the end of her class, I mean, she said that Narayan's palace was 300 kilometers long.
Wow.
You know. And I sort of like, would it be? You know, I mean, I did electronics in the military. I used the logical part, you know, of the intellect saying, really, was it? So I after the class, I asked Shilu Ben that, you know, would this be possible, you know, a building that's like that big, you know? And she said, no, that's his personal estate, you know, his personal chunk of land.
And that,
you know,
could that be the whole
She said it
kingdom?
was like from Jaipur to Delhi, you know, his palace was like 300 kilometers long. But that includes all the grounds, you know, like that. But I did have a vision once. I was standing on the hill overlooking a palace, And it was massive. It was huge. It went on for like a long time, you know. But that's not just a single building. That's a building with then gardens, grounds, courtyards, paths, fountains, gardens, another building over there, building in the background with more sort of like things. So, of course, a lot of Brahmins think, well, if the building's so big, then of course we must have personal vimans, otherwise we're not going to walk all that way, you know. It's about 3 kilometers over there we have to go, you know, so we just hop in a small viman and just shoot off.
I imagine there's not going to be any sense of rush over there, right? So
no, of course not, no. And everything's, yeah.
So if you want to walk, you can.
Just thinking about the translator.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Slow down? Okay. Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Actually, you know, it's a trait of Australians. Everyone says they speak too fast. You know, so we have to slow down. So, sorry.
And just as we are in Golden Age.
So just as we are in Golden Age, we're going to slow down a bit. But my fascination was what the city was like, you know, because is there like a huge central market where everyone can shop? Because if you've had classes or read classes by Dadi Gulzar, and her visions and experiences, or mostly her visions of the Golden Age, she said that there are public vimans, you know, vimans like buses.
Like taxis, Viman taxis.
Taxis, but more than just a taxi. You can take more people on it, like 20, 30 people on a Viman, and it will take you wherever you want to go. So there's a whole system in place, just like the cities of today, where you can actually, you know, go anywhere, because I'm assuming because of that not everyone has a Viman. You know, so maybe the royal families would have Vimans, the wealthy people in the cities would have Vimans.
Yes, Viman
yes,
means
the flying vehicles that, you know, that Baba says sometimes they're nuclear powered, they have anti-gravity, things like that. So those sorts, they can go from here to the other side of the world in less than a telephone call, Baba has said, you know, so that's very fast. And so there must be some technology that's hidden that we don't know of now.
Well, they're making, you know, those long-haul flights now that you can...
Yes, but that's very old technology that, you know...
Yeah.
I mean, they have...
technology is going to be completely at a different level.
I was actually, you know, all of these sorts of fascinating things seem to come to me because I was fascinated by the cycle. The second year I was in Gyan, I was staying in a brother's house in Bondi in Sydney. And I was standing in the kitchen and I was thinking about the cycle, and I was thinking about the change, you know, from the old cycle to the new cycle, you know. So I was thinking really hard, you know, because I'd read Jagdish's book and I was fascinated, but it really didn't give an insight, because the whole universe actually has to change, huh? Baba said yesterday, I think, that everything you can see has to change, like the whole creation has to change. He said, actually, I think it was, everything you can see is the creation. So it means all the stars in all the universe is part of creation, and it's all 5,000 years old. So every piece of matter in the whole universe has to change back to where it was 5,000 years ago, you know. So that's a very big change. So I was sort of like racking my brain, how would you do that, you know? So then I was standing in the kitchen and I had this vision, because in the first 2 years of my Brahmin life, I had lots of visions. We used to have these 2-hour bhattis, you know, at the center almost every weekend. And it was in those bhattis that I had a lot of visions. But this one occurred inside the brother's house. And it was, the vision I saw was the whole universe, but it was not just physically the universe, it was the underlying forces and energy. It's like the mechanism that makes the universe, that makes the cycle turn. because the universe is the cycle, it is the creation, and it has its own mechanism of how it turns and how it resets itself. You know, it has, and Baba, of course, is a part of that because of what he does, you know, being the creator. But there's also a system there that no one knows about that's actually hidden, you know, and Baba doesn't speak about it. But it's too long of a thing to explain here, so we'll talk about just the ages of the cycle. And so when I saw that, it actually made a lot of sense to me.
And what did you see?
It's very complex, and
In
it's
essence.
very hard to put in. Okay, all the hints are in the Murli. The Murli contains actually more than you can imagine. A line in the Murli might seem like a very brief, like I can't call it shallow because nothing in Baba's Murli is shallow. I mean, it on the surface it might seem like a simple line, but actually it has a very hidden meanings. You know, like there's a line in the Murli: "Everything you see will turn to dust." You know, and that's one of the things I saw in the vision. How the whole universe changes is because the universe is dismantled down to its most basic particle, atom, subatomic particle, you know, and where it's reassembled again, you know. So that was part of the vision. And then I read last year, there is something in the Indian scriptures here in India, and it's called Mahapralaya. Have you ever heard of
Mahapralaya,
that?
the Great Destruction.
The Great Destruction, but many pundits and things on the internet, like a lot of the sources that go through the scriptures, they call it the dissolution of the entire universe.
And
The dissolution means the pulling apart and reassembling, but it's done periodically, and it goes through these cycles. So they write about that in the scriptures, and that fascinated me, you know. But anyway, in the Golden Age, of course, all the matter is new, so it's completely different. So we'll start there because we got a little bit off track. We'll go through the Golden Age. So, I mean, it's hard to sometimes because you speak about one thing, but it's linked to so many things, you know, because everyone asks, you know, where's the advanced party? Because Baba I remember a couple of years ago, and it was the first time I heard it, and I've never heard it since. But Baba talks about Krishna, how he's born, but he also talks about Krishna's father. You know, he's mentioned Krishna's father, so he hasn't made as much effort as Krishna. You know, so the status, of course, isn't as great as Krishna, but still, being Krishna's father is still big status. But he also mentioned Krishna's grandfather, you know, so Krishna's father's father, and he didn't make as much effort as Krishna's father, you know. So that got me thinking about the generations before Krishna. So the advanced party is made up of generations. So they have to build up to the point where Krishna is born, you know. So they didn't make as much effort, so they're not as pure, but then the next generation is more pure, then the next generation is the purest, you know, which is Krishna's generation. And he's the first of his generation, you know.
So I'm tempted to ask a question here.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, you mentioned this line from Murli that everything turns to dust. And I imagine these generations are going on till the point that Krishna is born. So there's a part of our planet that's not.
Well, this is part
affected?
of the vision that I saw, and I mean I've tried to explain it to many Brahmins. Some think it's very logical, some don't get it. Some, of course, disagree because, I mean, everyone has their own ideas, you know. I've even tried to explain it to some of the senior brothers, but it didn't.
You can try on
sit.
us. We'll give us a go.
Part of it has to do. It's very vast. I mean, you could see everything. But the thing is about a vision. I don't know how many here have had visions. Anyone had
Oh,
visions?
amazing.
Yeah. Okay, oh, that's good. Because can you remember details in the vision? But you know what you saw, you know. Because when Baba gives you, Baba is the only one with the key to visions. We can't give visions to ourselves. So Baba has to give the vision.
Last what 2 to 3 seconds.
Oh, okay. So when you see the vision, you can see everything. I could see all the detail, the mechanisms and things, but it somehow, all that knowledge went in and I understood it. So somehow Baba had shown something, but also explained something at the same time so that it completely understood it within a second. You know, whether that's because of this intellect, I'm good with like computers, I can build a computer with my eyes closed, you know, things like that. So I don't know. It depends on the sanskaras, I guess, of each soul, you know. So, but when you actually see the vision, you can understand it, but trying to explain it is so hard, you know, without sounding like some sci-fi weird movie that someone might have seen at the cinema, you know. But anyway, what it is that there's a line in the Murli, and I can read 60 to 70% of Hindi, you know, and very regularly Baba uses this word in Hindi called shrishti, you know.
Oh, sorry, say that again.
Shrishti,
Srishti.
you know the meaning of this word?
Yeah, like
What
the
is it?
world.
So you use the translation of the world, but if you look online, most of all the sites I visited, and this is not Google Translate, this is sites that actually go into the scriptures, it means creation or the universe. That's its main meaning. You know, you can use it as world, but when I was sitting in the class, I would sit up the back, and especially here when staying in Madhaban, you know, there's of course the Murlis in Hindi, you can hear the English church, but I'd always have the Murli open on my phone, you know, which is how I was copying points for that book, Viewpoint. You know, 6 years of Murli, every day was reading the Murli, both in English and parts of the Hindi Murli. So this word Shrishti fascinated me because it comes up a lot, but in English, a lot of the time it's translated, like you said, like world, you know. But if you replace it with universe or creation, your awareness and your picture goes much broader, you know, because it's encompassing everything. When you say the word world, all you think of is the planet that we're on, huh? You don't think of everything, like the whole universe. You don't think of the whole universe. But I remember in one Murli, Baba said, you know, you need a new creation before the old creation is destroyed. You know, you've heard of this in the Murli. You need a new world, but it's translated, you need a new world before the old world is destroyed. You have to build the new home before the old home is destroyed, you know. So that's a hint as to what I saw, you know, that the new home, and we won't call it world, we'll call it the new creation, or the new universe is actually created before this one is destroyed or dismantled, you know, because this universe will be dismantled.
But is it happening like, you know, in the same sort of arena, or?
No, it's already there. It's fully
So
made
with
right now.
the change
you know,
that's
but
going to happen, the new creation is not impacted, is what you're saying.
no, because Neville said, I had lunch with Neville last year. He'd come over for a program and we were sitting...
And Neville's the brother from UK.
Neville
He's also a
Hodgkinson, yeah, you know,
science
yes.
researcher and
Yep,
writer, am I right?
Yep. Yeah. So he said something to me because he was speaking to, I think he said a physicist friend, I'm not sure, but it was a scientific friend. And he said that time is dimensional. So time is dimensional. Like we have knowledge of the three worlds, huh? We know where we're in this world. We have, you know, you see the picture of the three worlds, you know, but you could call it the three dimensions. I mean, you could, but it sounds a bit weird, So it's 3 worlds, 3 realms, or something like that. And of course we know one of those realms, the subtle region, is Baba inserts that between the soul world and the physical world at the confluence age, so he can do his task, and then all of our perfect forms are up there. So the thing is that if time is dimensional, it means, and it fits in with what I saw, is that the cycle and where we are at this time in this cycle is different to where the advanced party is and the time that they're at in that cycle. And they're ahead of time.
Oh, very interesting.
So if you know what I mean, but they're hidden, they're dimensionally hidden, And this is where one of Daddy Gulzar's visions was very interesting, I thought.
And what was their vision?
So she had a picture. She said in one of her classes that she had she had a vision, and she saw Madhaban was there, and then all of a sudden it just started disappearing, like almost just disassembling, and it was like a curtain that was going across, and behind it was the Golden Age already there. But this curtain, and Baba has mentioned it in the Murli, he talks about the curtain revealing, you pulling the curtain, the revelation, and then you can see the Golden Age, and this is what Daddy Gulzar saw.
A lot of people, when they visit our centers, visit Madhuban, they think this is a different world.
Oh, inside the center, it's a different world, because
like
the vibration.
To, what we experience. So could it be related to that as well, that it's,
Well, this is, what Daddy Gulzar saw was that this old world was dissolving and it was being wiped away, and it's like the hidden world was being revealed, but it's already there. It was already there. It was, it's just that we couldn't see it, and we can't get to it because we're impure. The soul's impure, and we have impure matter. We're bound by impure matter. So we, like Baba says, no impure soul can go there, and no pure soul can stay here. Because most of the daddies, you've got Mama and a lot of the seniors, they're all pure souls, they're all reached their sort of like perfect stage.
So if I'm understanding...
So they cannot take birth here, because every part of this world now, every piece of, every atom in the matter is impure and will affect them in some way,
And is your understanding that is still, within this, planet and within the Earth, or are you kind of understanding that to be?
Well, it's the same cycle. It's just time is dimensional. It's just at the start. And this is what I saw in the vision, is that where the confluence age is where the two actually meet together. It's where the end of one and the beginning of the other, where, we're making effort. And Baba has said this, I think it was in Visions of the Future. There's a book that was published a long time ago called Visions of the Future. It's no longer in print, sorry. Am I going too fast again?
Could you use another word that dimensional? I don't get it. What does it mean, dimensional?
Yeah, see, this is where it becomes very hard to explain. A dimension is another plane of existence that you cannot see. Like, for example, in this world, they talk about, bodiless souls exist on the astral plane. Have you heard of that? The astral plane. It's a plane that you actually can't see, but it's still within this world, Oh, Shambhala, I think, is the Buddhist word for heaven, like for paradise. So I think that's their memorial of, like, the Christians talk about paradise, in the Islamic religion they talk about paradise. So I think that's the Buddhist term for...
They said you must change vibrations, level of vibrations.
Well, the level of vibration in the Golden Age is so high, The matter is brand new. The matter is brand new. It's 100% has generating energy, color, energy, light, everything is there. It's so amazing. And I had one vision of this standing on the beach, but anyway, we haven't gone through any of the other ages
Yes,
yet.
I know, that's what I want to take you down now.
So-
I think what you have shared is very, very fascinating, and I'm not sure about everyone here, but it's something we haven't contemplated before about, this aspect. But it somewhat makes sense that, there are many things that we are not so far exposed to, and therefore, even if it's in front of us, we won't see it because we
Well,
haven't.
Shiv Baba gives the essence of everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't give the details. And he doesn't give us, of course, the location of the advance party, because then Brahmins being Brahmins would go try and get there,
That's right, we want to meet them again.
Yeah, that's right.
And we want them
All
to
the
be
daddies
here.
are taking birthday. Can we meet them? Of course not, because they're pure and we're not yet. So, and also, I think because Baba, like I said, gives the essence. He doesn't give details, but there are hints in the Murli. So, but it's up to us to sort of like churn and like I've done, read different things and think about different things,
Yeah,
So-
and I can definitely say, like, when you churn like this, it really comes alive. Like, you can see, how that world is going to look and feel and what's going to
Yeah.
happen. So it's just
I think
really great insights.
one good practice to have, and I've been having that practice for the last 5 to 10 years, especially over the COVID period, because Baba said that COVID period, the COVID virus was for you to make effort, yoga, have yoga, so I did, and I noticed a visible difference from the start of COVID to the end of COVID, that the extra yoga that it had in me, But one thing I did start to practice is that when you go to soul world, like when you go up above, don't just think of the planet, think of the whole of the creation, picture it in your mind, like broaden your intellect, your vision, broaden your vision out, to encompass everything. Because Baba says we have to serve the matter, we have to serve all the souls in the world, we have to serve the advanced party, we have to serve other Brahmins.
The animals, the plants.
The animals, that everything. Baba says that's included in nature.
Yes, yes.
So we have to serve that. So
this has been so amazing. We were going to converse 15 minutes on Golden Age, but
okay, so we can go quickly through the Silver Age.
also
Sorry,
really.
there was a hand going. We'll
Go
have a
on.
question and answer.
Oh, okay. I'll speak into the microphone. Sorry, because I'm sitting at an angle.
I'm curious to know, you saw the vision, you saw the word, but can you help us? Have you seen us? Have you seen, can you,
Have I seen?
Say that again.
you saw the physical word, that the new word, the golden English, but out of us, in the gold representation.
Oh, so you want to know about the people in Golden Age, what the people are going to be like in the gold. Okay, looks like our brothers and sisters want to stay in Golden Age.
That's all right. The Golden Age is good to stay there.
And maybe so
Stay there as long as possible.
Why I'm trying to get Geoff is because the topic today is the shift in ages, right? And you've churned a lot on that. So maybe after this we can go into the actual shifts that...
the second half of the cycle, we all know, you just got to read history a little bit, and you can sort of the second half of the cycle is sort of just war, basically. War and fighting, and kind of these sort of egomaniacs want to take over sort of other countries, but...
and we all want to stay in Golden Age.
You always want to stay in the Golden Age. So I had a really interesting experience. I was in Australia, and I decided I wanted some quiet, because Australia has a lot of beaches. I don't know, it's an island, so it has a lot of beaches. So I went down to the local beach. The retreat centre where I stay is near the beach. There's a bay, actually, in Melbourne. There's a bay. So there's no waves. It's just very gentle. It's like, I imagine it's like how it will be in the Golden Age. You know, there's no crashing waves, there's no violence in the Golden Age, even by nature, you know. So I was standing on the beach and I was watching the sunset over the water, and it was like quite striking, the sunset. It was very beautiful. And I was talking to Baba and I was saying, wow, Baba, I mean, this is like matter at the end of the cycle, and this is what nature can do at the end of the cycle. Imagine what it's going to be like in the Golden Age, you know. And I said this to Baba, and of course Baba responded, you know. All of a sudden I was standing on the beach in the Golden Age, but it was amazing, the energy from the matter, the color from the matter, just the vibration from the matter was so, I mean, there's no words actually to describe it, you know, because it's so different to now, you know. I mean, matter is matter, but it's just, I guess, the light that matter is built around, because matter is built around light, huh? Everything has a plan, you know, and the plan is made in light, you know, and we are light, you know, the soul is light, Shiv Baba is light. Soul world is light, but it's the sixth element of light, you know. So, but it's just that the light that the matter occupies, the space that the matter occupies, is so energized, so alive, you know, that it was like amazing. Yeah, it really surprised me that I had that.
Did you see any deities in your vision?
No, this was just standing on the beach,
Okay.
you know. But
Have
I
you
did.
seen any visions of deities?
Yes. My first vision I had, I was standing in a palace and I was looking at the columns and the arches, and I
With
looked
palace, like in the vision, a palace, or you were looking at a palace here?
down. In the vision,
In the
I was
vision.
just admiring the palace, because I was really interested in architecture as a kid. So, and early in Gyan, I used to travel through Rajasthan just going to palaces, because I loved going inside palaces. Wow, that's huge, wow. You know, like this, I was younger.
Maybe you were getting
I was
confused.
younger, a lot younger, like 40 years ago. So 30-something years ago. But I mean, but it always fascinated. So and then I looked down and there was a young girl putting a tray of flowers on a table, you know, because the flowers are so fragrant. You know, Baba says you don't need incense, so the flowers are so fragrant. And then she looked up at me and smiled, and, you know, I could see the soul. You can actually see the soul. It's not that the matter is translucent, but it's because everyone is so soul conscious. Like the third eye is 100% strong, you know, that you can see the soul. And as soon as I saw the soul, I said, wow. I said, I know you from the Confluence age. I knew the sister, you know. And as soon as of course, as soon as I said that, it finished.
And when you say you can see the soul, like what was that? Like you saw the light in their forehead, or what?
No, you can see the tiny star. You can actually see it. You know, it's like it's super. I do graphics and visual effects. It's like it's superimposed. It's like it's sitting on top of or behind, you know, but you can still see it, you know. So it's not that you
It would make sense with all the effort we're making now to see the soul.
to see the soul. It's a good practice to have.
It definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like a lesson for me to see the soul. So the second vision I had, I was looking at a princess and she was leaning down and a lot of little animals were coming to her in her hands. I don't know if she was feeding them, I can't remember.
So little birds, you mean? Or?
Oh, little animals, squirrels,
Animals,
you know,
oh.
the galeries here, like those little, sort of like little squirrels, chipmunks, you know, things like that, little birds and things like that coming to her. So, but then she looked up and smiled, and I was so taken back by the purity, that the energy coming out of her eyes, you know, that her purity was so amazing, so high, you know, that it sort of like, wow, you know, it was quite visibly sort of like pushed me back. So, I mean, so that was that sort of vision. So that was that sort of
Amazing.
thing. So, but yeah, so the Golden Age. But anyway, and of course, the Golden Age starts off with only 1 million people in the city. And then, of course, by the end of the Golden Age, of course, there's roughly around, take a guess, 10 million, maybe, because population grows slowly over 1,250 years, and of course it starts to spread out. Different cities spring up. There's one city that's the capital city, and of course as the population grows, you have what they call satellite cities, like small cities, which then, of course, as the population increases, they grow as well. And because we have Vemans, flying machines, it doesn't matter how far they are. They could be 100 kilometers away. They could be 300 kilometers away, the size of Narayan's palace. It doesn't matter. You can get there within no time at all. Or you can catch a Veman bus there and go to the next city, So it doesn't matter.
And did you see deities run to get on the Veman bus, or?
I didn't see anything like that, but I like creating it with AI because I'm doing a lot of creations with AI. All these Golden Age scenes, it's fascinating.
I can't imagine deities running.
Running for the bus, well, because they're late. No one's late in the Golden Age. They're exactly on time. So yeah, by the end of the Silver Age, and what actually, one Brahmin said to me, and he heard this very early in Madhaban in the 80s, 1980s, was that I always wondered, I always had this question, why would Lakshmi and Narayan hand over their dynasty to someone else? Because it marks the end of the Golden Age and into the Silver Age. So why would one family hand over the whole kingdom to another family when they have their own children? So that question was always, it stumped me a bit. There was a question mark there. So I just put it aside, And then one very old BK, who's no longer, he left the body, but he heard a class in the early 80s, and he said, because it was 2 degrees less, it was like the first tiny little mistake, There's no sorrow there, but the firstborn was a girl instead of a boy. So it means that she had to go and marry someone from another kingdom. So it means it's like her dowry, and I don't think they had dowries, but it was like that sort of thing. So the kingdom went with her, and she became the first Sita, And so the kingdom changed hands, because you have a dynasty for more than 1,000 years. Why would you hand it over to someone else? You've had 1,000 years of history of your own dynasty. It's because it's still with it, but it's with the daughter now. So the firstborn was a girl, And to me, when he said that, I thought, that makes perfect sense, actually, to me. I don't know to anyone else, but anyway. So then you have that. And of course, once the Silver Age starts, you have more expansion, Now, of course, there's the contentious issue, and it's interesting because Baba's mentioned 330 million deities, Have you heard this figure? Has everyone heard this figure? About 330 million deities? Baba sometimes mentions it, but it's actually clarified in the book Visions of the Future, is that 330 million is not the number at the end of the Silver Age. It's the amount of deities that have taken birth from the beginning right through to the end of the Silver Age. So in India, there's a memorial of 330 million deities. Apparently there are 330 million deities worshipped in India. So that's a lot, So even my brother, who's a Paka Christian, he said to me, there's 330 million deities in India. I went, what? How do you know that? Because he's a Christian. So
the population will be a lot less. It's not the
the population, because if you think about it, it means they go from 1 million to 333 million by the end of the Silver Age. It means the deities populate the planet faster than what they did from the beginning of the Copper Age to the end of the Iron Age, which doesn't make any sense, because the deities don't have lust. They only have 2 children each, In Silver Age, they might start having 3, 3 or 4 by the end of the Silver Age, So
I'm glad you churned on that and clarified that for us.
But by the middle of the Silver Age, of course, the kingdom is expanding. They might even go to other continents because Baba has said in the Murli, and he said it maybe 6 months ago, I think. I was in Australia and he said it. There are other continents. China will exist, but there's just no one living there. So there are
Says they're
other
picnic
lands.
spots, right?
They're picnic spots. Australia will be just an island. And if you've ever heard of that theory that there used to be just one land and it broke apart, that's an evolutionary theory to support the theory of evolution. That actually doesn't happen, because I remember seeing a video of this diver, and he had his arms out and he was inside of a crevice underwater, and he was touching. And they said he's touching a continent on either side. Now, if the continents were all one and they split apart, they should be miles wide. He shouldn't be able to touch each continent.
What continents were those? Do you remember?
I can't remember. No, sorry. But anyway, so the other continents are there with their unique animals, because giraffes in Africa, nowhere else in the world have they found giraffes, and they've never found a skeleton of giraffes anywhere else in the world. So giraffes only exist in Africa, and always have only existed in Africa. And it's the same with Australia. It's such a classic. Australia is a classic example. The kangaroo. I mean, this weird animal that sort of hops. It's never been found anywhere else. And even fossils or skeletons have never found it anywhere else. So Australia has always been isolated with its animal population, and it's unique to that area, But of course, I mean, it means that the big change at the end of the Silver Age is, of course, some of these lands sink and some rise above the ocean, because the Himalayas, they found seashells on top of the Himalayas, whale skeletons in the Himalayas. So, it means that the land used to be below the water at some stage. The Mayans have a book, everyone know what the Mayan civilization was in the Americas, in South and Central America? You have the Mayan civilization. There's a theory that there's a very close connected to India, because some of the script and the words actually mean the same as some of the script in some of the words in India. I found one website which highlighted this, which was quite interesting. And in their book, they talk about the Andes Mountains, which is the second biggest mountain chain in the world, being formed in 5 days, which means that it got pushed up from the ocean in just 5 days to be, however, 10,000 meters high, or
so
however
this was
high it
the
is.
shift that would have happened at the end of Silver Age.
The end of Silver Age, when the planet tilted. I mean, the Mayans
And
talk.
this aspect of planet tilted, is that something that Baba has shared, or is this based on the ancient history?
This is based on ancient texts,
Okay.
ancient history, what they've written about. For example, by the end of the Silver Age, of course, we have all the foundations of all the other civilizations, like Egyptians, Chinese, Mayans, the Americas, North Africans, Middle Eastern, all of these are there by the end of the Silver Age, the foundation of them. And these are the pre-civilizations of each of these. Like, for example, you have the Egyptians. The Egyptians are probably one of the most famous ones, but you have something called the pre-Egyptians, that built the original pyramids. But then after, of course, we're talking about the cycle, and they had, obviously, everyone at the end of the Silver Age still had technology, and there are many people around the world, it's really interesting, who are fascinated by early civilizations, because they find evidence that they've used technology to build some of these things, because you can't deny that if you've got a 1,500 ton, 1,500 ton stone block, that no modern machinery can lift. How are they going to lift it? So they must have obviously something there.
So it's good
And
time for
we
traffic
know,
control.
Oh, it is? Okay. Oh, it
and
is
we
5:30.
can be in the
Okay.
golden age.
We can be in the golden age, not the silver age.
Yeah, that's right.
योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह वश आज है सब मोहताज योग लगा कर पाप मिटा ले स्वर्ग सजा ले तू आज काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह वश आज है सब मोहताज योग लगा कर पाप मिटा ले स्वर्ग सजा ले तू आज
जन्म जन्म की प्यास बुझा ले पावन बन सरकार
योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा
संगम युग में परम पिता शिव कहते हैं राज
तू है एक अविनाशी आत्मा सुन लो मेरी आवाज
संगम युग में परम पिता शिव कहते हैं राज
तू है एक अविनाशी आत्मा सुन लो मेरी आवाज
सुख शांति और पावनता से झोले भर लो आज
योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा
परम धाम से आए हैं शिव ब्रह्मा तन आधार मुक्ति और जीवन मुक्ति का जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार परम धाम से आए हैं शिव ब्रह्मा तन आधार मुक्ति और जीवन मुक्ति का जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार
चलना है चलना है घर वापस अब तो यही ज्ञान का सार योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा योगी जीवन है प्यारा योगी जीवन है प्यारा
There's a musical bag down there.
So this has been fascinating, Geoff. I have to ask you one question.
Yep.
Which, sorry, is going to take us. It's about leading us into golden age.
That's all right.
And yeah, the question is, I think it's a question that's in every Brahmin's mind.
What's that?
Is how much time is remaining?
Baba says never to ask that. You cannot
We want to
ask
know
that.
your churnings on it, and if you found any, history texts with dates.
I mean, Baba's always said that the confluence age is 100 years of Brahma. I mean, if you read I think it's 21st of January, 1969, the text from that. I mean, of course, Brahma Baba left quite suddenly. I mean, well, not suddenly. I mean, he was avyagt. So one thing that fascinated me was they asked him, what was it like, to actually leave your body and go to the subtle region. But what's really interesting is because Brahma Baba was so like avyagt while still in the body, he said it was just like changing his clothes and walking into another room. which means he was already there most of the time, if you know what I mean. He was already in that stage. So the transition of just leaving the body and going there permanently, for the rest of the confluence age, was no sort of not big deal. It didn't sort of didn't bother at all. So, and then of course another one of the questions was that you promised that you would be here to the end, and Bapdada said, the age of, the age of Brahma is still 100 years, It's just that Brahma Baba is in a different form now, that's all. It's just, of course, the body to last 100 years of the confluence age plus 60 years he was physically, then that's not possible, not in this world, not with these bodies and this matter, So, and of course,
2036?
who knows? I mean, it's different because you can add maybe 5 years or take 5 years off. Who knows? You can give them plus or minus 5 or 10 years. You don't know, because Baba says the cycle is 5,000 years, but is it exactly 5,000 years? And what constitutes a year? Because in the second half of the cycle, 1 year is 365.25 days per year. Hence we have the 4-year, But in the first half of the cycle, the days are 360, because 1 degree is one day, 1 degree around the sun, because it's in the golden age.
That's
of course, the
interesting.
Earth is a perfect circle around the sun, and it's not tilted, so everything is perfect, so everything is balanced, So as it moves around the sun, 1 day is 1 degree, it's exactly correct. So you get 360 degrees in 1 year. But of course they do not measure years there. They exist in the present and they don't worry about the future and they don't look to the past, they don't remember the past. And that's carried over, interestingly enough, way to the Copper Age, because when the British first came to India, they could hardly find any written records from early Copper Age. All the written records were by either other people coming here, because the consciousness was to live life in your current present. Yeah. Don't dwell on the past and don't worry about the future, because.
Yep.
But one interesting thing is that there was a Roman general, a retired Roman general from very, very early Copper Age, like only maybe 80 years or 100 years after the start of Copper Age. It was like 300 and something BC. He wrote a journal because when he retired, he took a trading vessel and went to explore the world, because he was only in Rome. And he kept a journal, and when he landed in Sri Lanka, which used to be part of India, but it all changed. But he was so shocked because he said the average lifespan of the people in the city was 100 years. The average lifespan was 100 years, which means it was still living quite long, at the beginning of the Copper Age. So that's quite interesting, I thought.
Yeah, amazing, what we are creating consciously and where we're heading. One question comes to mind is, how this has helped you, this churnings and this visions in your Brahman life. Because often Baba says in the Murli, don't have a desire for vision. But I can see you've had many and, you've churned deeply, you've read a lot. So how do you think that's...
I think for me it gives a broader, bigger picture of the whole cycle. And it gives a little bit of detail, and it helps me explain some things to others. Like, for example, my older brother, my Lokik older brother, he was quite a Paka Christian, but we had common ground, is that he believed in, like the Christian religion says the earth is 6,000 years old. that God created the earth 6,000 years ago. So he didn't believe in evolution. So we used to have these discussions, and we'd both come up with evidence about, against sort of like, the things they've found that doesn't make sense with evolution, and it's quite a lot, so there's quite a lot of evidence, and there's quite a lot of books that go into scientific evidence about things that do not fit with evolution, if you ever want to read them, like Shattering the Myths of Darwinism, which is an interesting book. Has a lot of scientific evidence in there. So,
So it brought about clarity and
so clarity
as well.
and service, because you get a broader picture, so it's more easily explainable to others if they ever ask about it, because the theory of evolution, of course, is the most common theory taught in schools, of course, but they teach it as fact. But it is still only a theory, and if you actually go into the history of evolution and how it started and its journey, it's like, how did it even get there? It's quite sort of like quite an eye opener. There's one good book called Darwin, Victorian Mythmaker, which is quite an interesting sort of read also. But anyway.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. I think for us, I feel it's been that you brought it alive for us, the Golden Age, and shared about details. Would you all agree that, we hadn't contemplated before? So I feel a lot richer
There's a lot,
in my
there's
understanding,
lots of stuff, yeah.
and now
Well, we didn't really
even
go
more
through
excited.
we didn't really go through the ages, but anyway.
Yeah, we didn't, so that would be for another
We
time.
went mostly in one age,
Yeah.
the next age. So.
I've had the pleasure of asking all the questions, and I know maybe some of you may have some questions as well for Geoff based on what you have heard. So I want to just open it up to the floor. If anyone's got questions, just put your hand up and I'll speak your question into the mic for the recording. Oh, you have a mic here. Brilliant. Thank you. You just say your name and where you're from so we all get to know each other as well. We're a small group today.
I'm Shanti. Do you think that, because you were mentioning the pyramids, like how the blocks are so heavy, do you think that because our consciousness creates, like our vibration creates matter, then because we're so much lighter and so much more elevated in the Golden Age, do you think that matter is also then lighter, so maybe all of this AI technology is somehow, still in the scientist's sense scar or personality traits. So when that soul comes into the Golden Age, and together with our elevated consciousness, as Brahmins in the Golden Age, and everything is so much, all the matter is so much lighter, then this is also, the pyramids will be lighter. Oh, does this make sense? So the pyramids will, of course, be easier to...
I know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the pyramids, the pyramids were built like 2,500 years later than the start of the cycle. So the matter had lost... Well, the cycle had lost, 4 degrees, at least 4 degrees. So obviously the matter would be different then anyway. But I mean, many open-minded investigators, and I'll call them investigators because if you're a proper scientist who's accredited and things, all of these investigators they call pseudoscientists, not real. They're not real scientists, but people are fascinated by the things of like Egypt, that they still had engineering and technology right at the end of the Silver Age, So they were still carving stone and able to lift stone using technology, There's an interesting, what do they call it? Not a temple. There's an underground temple, I think, in Egypt that is quite far underground, and it's got a lot of pictures and hieroglyphs in it. And one of the things they can't figure it out is how they lit that underground sort of like chamber, And one of the one of the hieroglyphs, one of the carvings or pictures on there is almost like an indication of how they lit it, because I don't know if you've ever seen it, it's this quite a big hieroglyph, it's this giant light bulb, like even with a cable coming from the bottom of it, going around and going to someone who's sitting next to a box, operating this box. So it's like this giant light bulb, you know. So they still had electricity.
So that was the equipment to cut.
That was the equipment. And there's another hieroglyph above a lintel in a door. And if you look at it, any person would say they're aircraft. Because there's one which is quite interesting. It looks like a helicopter, has blades on top, has the same shape as a helicopter, but the bottom of it has a square cut out like that, as if to go over a block of stone, lift it and take it somewhere, if you know what I mean. You know, so that's a hieroglyph on, you know, one of the Egyptians. But because it's a little bit controversial, because people say, well, you know, it's proof that they have, scientists don't want people to start thinking that they had technology, you know, because everything is done with copper chisels and stones, you know. They built all the pyramids with manual labor and copper chisels and stones, you know. But I was watching a video yesterday and they said, look, you can drag stones on wooden sleds with lots of people, like some of the hieroglyphs show, only up to a certain, maybe 150 tons. But some of the blocks in Egypt are like 1,000 tons.
So not physically possible.
It's not physically possible, you know. So things like that they still had technology and engineering skills, you know. And you can see it in the cut stones. If you go to have you visited the Great Pyramids? I haven't, but I was just wondering if you had. I know people who have, but I've seen footage of people who have, but they don't go the normal tourist sites. They go off-site, and if you go down to the base of the stone base, you can see saw marks, you can see drill marks, you can see machine marks in the stone, you know, but they don't show you that because it's controversial for normal scientists, you know, to think that the ancient civilizations had any technology is like, no, it doesn't fit in with the picture of how civilization started, you know. But of course, it's totally the opposite of what they think, you know.
And I guess the other part of your question was whether the knowledge from here gets refined over there in terms of technology, is that right? What? Okay, maybe not. I read too much into it. That's okay. Did it answer your question?
Yeah, it was
okay.
You know, with our elevated consciousness, if you know, like the thing we call AI now is just, you know, part of our consciousness.
AI is part of our consciousness.
AI? Are you saying AI?
I'm saying AI.
As in artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
Or almighty intelligence? Or the Atma intelligence?
Oh, okay.
Or any intelligence. It starts with an A. AI is simply a machine program, that's it.
I think what she's meaning, though, if I'm understanding you right, is that the knowledge is in the soul of all these inventions. Is that right?
Yeah, scientists have this knowledge, you know, it's in this, it's embedded in the soul, so at the right time, at the right part of any part of the cycle, that knowledge comes out. You know, like the Wright brothers, you know, or like, for example, you know, say 100 and something years ago, all of a sudden, people started being interested in flight. So airplanes were starting to be invented in different parts of the world, all at the same time. And it was the same with motor cars, you know, because it was that time in the cycle that knowledge needed to come out in those souls to invent them, you know. And it's the same at the end of the Silver Age, you know. But of course, the thing is, though, the Great Pyramid, those three pyramids that are in a row, you know, the Great Pyramid called the Pyramid of Giza, and I read a book which was really interesting, and it was at...
I want to also give opportunity to other questions.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So after this.
After this, okay. So the interesting thing about that book is that he did a lot of research on the pyramids, And he came to the conclusion that the Great Pyramid, see, scientists think the Great Pyramid is the last pyramid built because it's like the culmination of all the knowledge that they learned, you know. But in actual fact, this book said it's the first pyramid built because the knowledge disintegrated after that, because as each successive generation takes birth, the knowledge weakens, the knowledge becomes diluted, you know. So then by the time, like third or fourth generation, the pyramids start falling apart. Whereas this, the original one, because we know that the scientific technology was there at least 2,000 years beforehand, and all that knowledge was still there, that they built these amazing sort of things. But then when the earth changed and generations who had this knowledge were lost because of that change, then they couldn't sustain that knowledge. You know, some of it was carried over to the Copper Age, some engineering skills. The Romans had good engineering, the Greeks still had good engineering skills, so like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. Yes, we've got two more, so yep.
Thank you. Om Shanti. The question is not exactly about what we are talking, but it is. You mentioned that Neville said that time is multi-dimensional, maybe?
Time is dimensional.
Dimensional,
Yeah.
yes. So there is a debate amongst Brahmins about the saddle region. If saddle region is a lock, a place, or a consciousness.
No, it's I've been. I can't say I've been there. You can't go there in this form, you know.
Yes, because
I've
made it
been
out of
there.
matter. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Baba says he creates the subtle region at the confluence age, and it's to help Brahmins, you know, with their subtle forms, their perfect forms, and it's to help Baba as well. I remember there's one brother in Australia, he told me he had this, I'm not sure if it was a vision, but he saw Baba standing there in the subtle region, and he was standing at a console, and he had huge amount of TV screens, and there was, each one was like Brahmins or the service centers doing different things. So
No
he was
wonder
viewing.
in the Murli often says, I can see on the TV.
Yeah, he can see on the TV all the things going on, sort of like in the different centers, you know. And this is one of the functions of the subtle regions, you know, Baba can do that. But of course, there's a lot of things Baba can do that he doesn't tell us, you know, because he is God after all. He is the Supreme Soul. So he does have an awareness that is like way beyond ours, you know. I mean, there's that saying, you know, we are like just a candle to the sun, you know. Have you ever heard of that?
I think this vision of Baba with television screens in subtle region is actually, I think if we think Baba is looking at us all the time.
But I've had experiences of each of the Puris in the subtle regions. I've been to Shankar-Puri, which was really interesting. I had a vision. And
Tell us quickly.
okay, I was just standing there, and it is like a red light, like the soul world. But the thing is, though, I could see like a border, and it was a curved like a horizon, a curved horizon border, and then the soul world started. But if I had an arm and put my arm up, it would have gone into the soul world.
Wow.
You know, so I think it is a dimensional place that somehow, and in science fiction, they call it a pocket dimension. It's a small dimension specifically for a purpose, you know, which is what Baba creates, and then it disappears, you know, once the confluence age has finished its task. And it's finished its task, and we all go back home, then it's not needed anymore, and so it disappears. Or Baba, I don't know how Baba does it, he rescinds it, or he, you know, because you get the trance messengers who go there, Baba can create anything with light there, any shape or form, trees, gardens. I've been there, I went there very early on in the same house I had the vision of with the cycle, one Amrit Vela. All of a sudden I found myself in the subtle region, this whole scene played out, you know. But everyone was there. There were other Brahmins there, Bapdada was there, he was walking, there was a garden, there was a lake, There are little lotus boats on the lake. I mean, Baba created this out of light, you know, so this is it created in my mind, or is it created in the subtler regions, and Baba's taken my consciousness there to see it? And can he create all of that with his mind and shape the light? So it's this fascinating thing that he can do all of this, you know. Sorry.
Wonderful. There's sorry, well, there was one more hand up or two. Okay, we've only got 5 minutes, so if you can be sensible in your question, and Geoff, you've got the challenge of responding.
No problem. This is Margaret.
Hello, Margaret from London.
Yes, Margaret.
And Baba talks, you know, like I'm more thinking about the time of the transition, you know, the destruction of this planet, and Baba talks about the earthquakes and fire and all those things. But there's there's a bit of a gap for me, because what about the ether? Because they say the ether is like space. And I remember seeing this thing years ago, one Brahmin put it together, and it was like the power of the soul that we take, the power we take from Baba has an effect on the earth, and you know, the purity has an effect on water. That's why there's so much water is in in the different religions, and that happiness has effect on the fire element and love on the air. But it was interesting because peace has an effect on the ether. This was in this thing, and that's what our main thing is. We know purity, but our main thing is Om Shanti. We know there's purity behind that. So I'm just wondering if you've had any thoughts about the ether and the effect of the ether in the whole world of transformation, or maybe it's like to think about. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if the ether is space, because I heard that, like, ether is actually, in India they call it space. It's just the space, the void outside of the planet, you know, where there's no air, you know. I mean, that is still part of the cycle. That is still part of all the elements that make up the whole universe. So that, of course, has to be purified as well. So, I mean, that sort of element, the ether, I mean, you know, we know the soul world is the sixth element, and it's light, but the ether is like the fifth element. But it's the void in space, and I mean, space is space, as far as I know, you know. I mean, I know from reading astronauts' experience, because even before Gyan, I read a really thick book about the whole space program of NASA from its very beginning right through till I think it was like early 80s. And one thing the astronauts said is that when they're in space, you know, because space is silence, because there's no air there, there's no sound, because sound needs air in order to sort of vibrate, you know, in order to vibrate to make sound, you know. So they actually feel closer to God there because of the silence, because of the peace, and they're able to appreciate almost everything better, if you know what I mean, the existence of everything better, simply because of that silence, you know. So whether, I mean, there's space in the golden age, we just don't go there, you know, but there's no need when you've got you're living in a paradise. So, I mean, I'm not sure if that answers anything of your question, you know. I mean, it is the void of space, so, I mean, the whole solar system has to change. Some of the planets are in odd positions, have been disturbed at the end of the Silver Age, but that's a whole another class, you know. That's a whole different thing. So, that's a long...
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think we won't be able to take any more questions. No, but it's time, because 6 o'clock, all the Nivasis come here for Patti, and we are on the dot. So, Geoff, if that's okay, can I offer they can ask their questions to you at dinner time?
Yeah, sure.
So Geoff's going to be around. So for those whose questions we haven't been able to
Sit at a
take,
table just waiting for
yeah,
everyone to
please
ask questions.
ask Geoff at dinner. And I just want to take 1 minute to also quickly share about this amazing book that you briefly talked about, The Viewpoint.
Viewpoint.
Where do you want to maybe just mention in a line or two what this book is?
Because I spent so much time in Madhuban, most of that time was in Shantivan. So while listening to them early, I was fascinated because I know some Brahmins who have left Gyan, because they had doubts that Shiv Baba was talking, that Shiv Baba was actually speaking this knowledge. I thought, how can that be? If you actually just listen to the Murli, Baba sometimes speaks in third person, and I'll say person in quotations because Baba's not a person, he's the Supreme Soul. But he speaks in third person perspective, but many times he speaks in first person perspective, like, I do this, I am this, I've come here. That's him saying, that's him giving his experience of his role, So I thought, sometimes there's a lot in one Murli, sometimes there's only one sentence or two sentences in a Murli that he speaks this way, like in the first person's perspective, So I started copying all of those sentences where he speaks in first person's perspective over 6 years, and it ended up being a 260-page book of just Baba speaking his experience in his personal perspective. I do this, I am this, like this. So I put it all together, and it's a PDF, an A5 PDF of 260 pages of just Baba talking about his role, what he does,
And
without any other things in there. So.
Thank you. That is such a gift for all of us, that you've done all that hard work and giving us the beauty and the essence.
It started off just saying, how can they, if they just look in the Murli, it's there. Baba's speaking, I do this, I do this. It's not Brahma Baba speaking. Because when Brahma Baba speaks, he uses we. We go to the golden age, we have become impure. And of course, Shiv Baba doesn't become impure, so it's not him speaking, it's Brahma Baba speaking, So when Shiv Baba speaks, he says, you became impure. You do this, I do not become impure, So he makes that distinction.
It's available for download or reading. We are putting a link it's a QR code at Global Office Notice Board. It's called Viewpoint. So scan the QR code and you will get access to this book. So with that, once again, thank you so much, Brother Geoff, for sharing your churnings and your readings and your experience and your visions.
We could go on for another couple of hours.
I know, we could have gone on and on.
Yes.
But I think, the next part is Bhatti, and with all the experiences you've talked about, you've had the Bhatti, it's an opportunity for all of us to, we've got an hour and a half Bhatti with the Nivasis today.
Travel the three worlds.
So we can, put in a request to Baba. We are here, we want to feel it and experience. So, okay, Om Shanti, have a powerful Bhatti.
Thanks, Om Shanti. So, what happens now?